is, guys? The boy BlastphamousHD. We're here for more fucked up horror stories. This one's called 6 True Scary Police Horror Stories to keep you up at night. Link to the original video will be in the description down below. Now this video's 25 minutes long, and I already have a strike on my channel, so I can only do 15-minute long videos. So I'm probably gonna have to cut this one off like 3 stories in, and then continue the other 3 stories in another video. I'll put a link down in the description to that video. Alright, let go!
I'm not a cop, but my boss used to be one, and he told me this. Cops get called to check up on a guy who hasn't shown up to work in a few days, and his family haven't heard from him either. They show up to his apartment and stumble across him. He shot himself in the face. There's blood everywhere. Alcohol bottles, the gunshot or impact or something had even blown his eye out. It was a horrible mess. Apparently he had gotten real drunk and decided to kill himself. Boss calls it in, and him and a few others who were called in are waiting for the coroner or whoever is supposed to come out and do all that cop stuff. They're waiting in the doorway to his bedroom, just kind of shooting the shit. And all of a sudden, this guy just sits up in bed and starts attempting to talk. This guy who looked dead, hole in his fucking face, eyes gone, blood everywhere, sits up and starts mumbling. My boss, who had done tactical training with the FBI, said he scared him so much he almost drew his gun and shot the guy thinking he was a zombie or something. Turns out, he hadn't shot himself in a vital way, like some Fight Club stuff or something. My boss wasn't very specific on that. He had drunk so much and was probably so doped up from the script pills that he had no idea what happened. Mind you, he had only shot himself the night prior. He hadn't been laying in bed for a few days bleeding out. Luckily for him. Number 5.
Damn! Did he
A
live?
few years back, prior to sworn LEO, I worked as a security guard / cop at a hospital. Sounds cool, and it was. Except for the fact it was 9 PM to 7 AM, I worked alone, and the hospital I guarded was abandoned. I was a third shift kind of person. I don't get jitters or scare easily, but this place could do it to the best of them. Every night I would walk, or ride a wheelchair, through the halls that were supposed to be empty or unused. Every night I would end up having to close doors and relock them. I would walk one floor, move up to the next, and continue on. I got a little shaky when an hour after already walking in a hallway, I would have to turn off some of the hall lights and close the same doors again in the building. Or when I would be walking a hall and then I would hear footsteps on the floor above me, doors opening and closing, elevators moving from floor to floor, phones ringing, nurse call lights on, etc. There were only 3 times I got the "I hate this shit" feeling. The first time I was checking offices on the 4th floor. There was a light on in a locked hallway, no surprise. This hallway hadn't been renovated since the place was built, short of electricity, so everything was from the...
My phone just went off and scared the fuck out of me. I hate watching this scary shit.
the 1920s. I unlock the door, flip the lights, walk out, relock the door and turn to leave. Behind me I hear the flip of a light switch. Through the frosted glass I see the lights went back on. I left the hallway alone that night. The second time I was riding an elevator between floors. I was taking the elevator to the top floor when at about the 4th or 5th floors I hear laughing and muffled talking. It kept getting louder as I got higher. The elevator makes it to the 5th floor, the doors swing open, and absolute silence. Of course, every light on the floor was on, even in the patient rooms. I checked high and low, not a single living and breathing person in that place except for me. The third, and worst of all, was just an average night. I'm on the lower level locking a door in a corridor. The door had a glass middle, but on the backside it was covered by white tape. The room it led to was dark, and the hallway a few feet behind me was partially lit, so the glass acted like a perfect mirror. Everything normal, Key in, lock clicks, turning the key, when behind me I see the full outline of a person walk past me in the hallway. Clear as day, just a full shadow of a person walking past. I froze, only for about a second, and then ran into the hall after the...
She scared the fuck out of me, man! Damn it!
...supposed person. But there was no one. Just silence.
Number 4.
One evening, I received a call of a man lying in the front yard of his grandmother's house with his throat cut. The grandmother had called in and requested an ambulance, saying that the victim had come up to her door and asked for help and then passed out, and that he had his throat cut. As I responded, I fully expected to find a drunk with a minor cut passed out in the front yard. Upon my arrival though, I found the victim lying on his back in the front yard. I shined my flashlight down on him, and when my light hit him, his neck was cut from one ear all the way to the other ear. I could see down his throat into his chest cavity. And by some miracle, the cut had completely opened the skin but not gone through the windpipe or blood vessels. The ambulance, which arrived shortly after me, transported him to the hospital. The grandmother could not or would not tell me anything about what happened, so I went on to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, the emergency room nurse told me she was just about to call the dispatcher because another wounded victim had come in to be treated. I told her I would take that case too. When I looked at his chart, I found out he had the same last name as the victim we just brought in. I decided to talk to the people who brought him to the hospital before I talked to him. By talking to them, I would be able to tell if he were telling me the truth or not. I talked to all of them and found that there had been a birthday party for one they had brought in, and that he and his brother, who was my first victim, had gotten into an argument. I was told that the argument was over one brother talking to the other brother's girlfriend. All they would tell me about the wounds was that the brothers had locked themselves in a bathroom, and a few minutes later, they both came out bleeding. I knew enough now to go talk to the second victim. I had found that he had been cut from just above the left eyebrow, straight through the left eyeball and across the nose. The wound ended in the middle of his right cheek. It was obvious that he was going to lose his left eye. It was cut in two. At first, he did not want to tell me what happened, but after I told him I could charge him with trying to kill his brother, he told me everything. Once inside the bathroom, both brothers had grabbed straight razors and cut each other. I also found out that the grandmother's house, where I had found the first victim, was over half a mile from the house where this had happened. The man had walked over half a mile with his throat cut. I talked to both brothers and explained how they could press charges if they wanted to. Neither one wanted to press charges though. I filed my report and forgot about the whole thing until I received a call from the brother who lost his eye about a week later. He told me he had insurance and had filed a claim for the loss of his eye. He asked me to change my report to say that it was an accident so the insurance company would pay off. He said he could not get any money the way my report was written now because it showed the whole thing was a fight, and the insurance company said that was different from an accident. I told him I was sorry, but I could not change my report because that was the way it had happened. He wasn't happy with me, but there was nothing he could do to make me change my report.
Number 3.
God damn!
Many times, especially during domestic disturbances, people want the police officers to be a referee. They know you will step in if things get too hot, so they use this for a chance to say or do things they would not normally say or do. All too often, this leads to an explosive situation. The officer is not always aware of what is going on until it's too late. Many officers have been hurt or killed while handling domestic disputes. They are all very dangerous situations, and the officer has to be ready to react quickly. The dispatcher gave one of my men, who happened to be a canine handler, a call of a domestic dispute between a husband and wife who had been separated for some time. I heard the call over the radio and recognized the names. This couple had been having domestic troubles for years. I was closer to the location than the other officer, so I told him I would handle it if he would back me up. I arrived at the house. As I got out of my car, I saw the other deputy coming down the street, so I waited on him. He arrived and we walked up to the house. The husband opened the front door and we stepped inside. The door opened into the living room. Straight ahead of us was a console television against the wall to our right. The rest of the living room spread out ahead of us and to our left. The couple had 3 children, from about 7 years old to a girl of 15. The children lived with their father in this house. The mother had moved out. Once we were inside, the husband said he wanted his wife removed from the residence. I asked him what was going on, and he stated that he had custody of the children. His wife had come to pick them up for the weekend, and they had all gone out to supper together. During supper, they had a couple of drinks, and one thing led to another, and by the time they got back to the house, they were arguing. He held out what he said was a restraining order, and stated that until their case got to court, neither of them was to bother the other one. The paper in his hand was ripped into little pieces. He said she had ripped it up when he called for an officer. I told him it didn't matter whether the paper was ripped or not because I was not going to try and enforce it. Restraining orders are tricky in the best of situations, and in this case they both had violated it, thereby making it void just by going out to supper together. I told both of them that the restraining orders were made to keep people apart so trouble would not start in the first place. They could not be forgotten all night until trouble started, then selectively enforced. I told them if the wife was going to take the children for the weekend, why not take them and leave? That would solve the problem. The wife informed me that she could not leave because he had taken the coil off of her car so it couldn't run. I asked him about this, but he said it was not true. My hopes of solving this dispute quickly had faded, so I told them both that I would listen to their whole stories, one at a time, starting with her. She started out with the same old thing about how they had not been able to make their marriage work and progressed to where he was a bum. While she was talking, she was standing in front of the console television facing me, and he was standing to my left, beside her. The other officer had been standing behind me. He stepped outside to let his dog know that he was alright. The dogs are trained to keep their eyes on their masters, and they become very upset when they can't see them for a few minutes. The front door had been opened, but a screen door kept the dog from seeing his handler. The officer stepped out and called to the dog to be quiet. He had been barking and becoming more upset as time went by. The officer stepped out because everything seemed under control. About the time he got out the door, the woman said, "And he's mad because he's afraid when we get to court I'll say something about him having sex with his own 15-year-old daughter." I looked up from my notebook as the husband caught her with a right hook to the jaw.
Shit just got real, children. Did not see that coming. Fucking your own 15-year-old daughter. Come on, son. And you know it's true because he hit her. Don't tell on me, bitch. Ah! Bad joke. Okay.
Which knocked her sideways into the television. I dropped my flashlight, pen and notebook as he jumped on her and grabbed her around the neck. I shouted for the other officer, and at the same time I grabbed the husband and pulled him off of her.
Okay, y'all, I'm so sorry to have to freaking do this, but y'all know I got that 15-minute strike shit on my channel, and it's getting super close to 15 minutes. It won't even render. It won't even let me upload the video if it's 15 minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna put a link right here on the fucking screen. Click that shit to go to this second part, man. God, Jesus. I thought we'd be able to get to this one, through this one before I had to end it to the next one. But yeah, see you guys on the next one. This is getting really fucked up. So fucked up. Make sure to check out my prank channel. I'm uploading 2 brand new pranks every single week, as this one you see on the left. Click the annotation if you want to watch that, or look in the description where I'll leave a link for the people who are on phones. And as always, BlastphamousHD out.